Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make an Office Forms quiz. To do that, you need to sign into Office 365. And once you're in, your welcome screen will look like this. Now I'll show you how to do three things: how to create a Office quiz, how to share it with your students, and then how to view the results. First, once you're signed in, you're going to look for your Forms tile. So click there. Right, and this is where all your quizzes or forms will be saved. To begin, you're going to click on a new quiz. Now, your other option is just simply a form where you can collect data from responses. None of that is either right or wrong. So the main difference here is that if you click on quiz, certain sections of your quiz can be automatically marked for you, which is great. So let's start with that. New quiz. I'm going to give it a title here. Let's call it a demo quiz. You can add a description now, or you can change that later. Going to add, so when we click on add new, a few options come up. You can get straight into it and add questions, multiple choice here, text or open-ended, long answer question here, a rating. Students can select based on a scale, a response, pick a date, so different options. On this drop-down menu, you have more options. They can rank certain responses. They can answer using a Likert scale, attach files as well, but I want to focus on section. So if you want to design a quiz, an assessment, evaluation, where you have different sections such as knowledge, communication type questions, application, thinking, you want to click on this. Now I should say that the best kinds of thinking questions are certainly not multiple choice questions. Can't probably be assessed in this type of quiz, but given a certain situation, that might be your only option. Okay, so let's call this section our knowledge section. You can add a description here, but you don't have to. Now we can click add new, and we can decide on multiple choice. Okay, so first question. Option, you can give it whatever possible answer. Let's just say B, A, B, C, and D. You can write whatever you'd like here. Now you can choose between all of these and say, well, the correct answer is C. Right, now you've selected the correct answer C. So if students respond to this question with the answer C, it will be automatically marked and tallied for you. And I'll show you how to get into that in a bit. Okay, see what happened here? I clicked away from that first question, so now it thinks I'm finished with that question. I'm going to move on. If that happens to you, just click back on the question. So if there's more than one possible answer, if that happens to be what you want to do, you can click on multiple answers and you can say, well, A is incorrect, B and C are correct, and you can click on that. Right? I'll unclick that just to make C my correct answer. This is also going to be a required question. If I want students to complete this quiz, I want them to answer every question, not leave one blank. And by clicking on that, they won't be able to submit the quiz unless they answer that question. Okay. Let's add another one, and I'll show you one more thing. So multiple choice, second question, I'll just say true. We'll make this a true and false question. See, after I've typed in true, next possible or a possible answer came up here. Pretty smart. If I click on false, it saves me a second perhaps. Okay, let's say that false is correct. All right, now more options. I click here if I want to add some context to that question, want to add some additional information. I can click subtitle, and I can add additional information here if you want. You don't have to. That's just another option. I can shuffle these options. So if this were a multiple choice, not necessarily true and false, I can shuffle them. So if students are writing this, let's say in a class when they're somewhat close to each other, just to avoid wandering eyes, you can shuffle those answers between quizzes. This next option is pretty good as well. I'll show you that when I do the next section. Math. This math option is relatively new and allows you to ask math-related questions a bit easier. Okay, so here are my two questions in this knowledge section. You can continue adding questions. I'm going to create a new section. So section number 2 is going to be, let's say, communication. Okay, add new. I'm going to say text. This is going to be an open-ended question, right? And you can assign not open-ended questions, but you can assign one-word answers. So maybe I'll change this to a one-word answer. What is the capital of Ontario. Okay, capital of Ontario. Now you can have a student who respond here. I'm going to add an answer to it. Let's say it is Toronto, right? That will now be the correct answer. Now I've recently learned that lowercase and uppercase doesn't matter. So if you want to add another possible answer and say Toronto, where the T is not a capital, it actually won't accept it because it already has that here, right? So fortunately, upper and lowercase, it isn't case sensitive. So if you've written Toronto, if they write Toronto with a lowercase t, it'll still consider that correct. But if it wanted to have, let's make sure to click on required. Let's maybe assign a point to that so it gets marked. If I want a more open-ended question, that was going to do at the beginning. So open-ended question. I'm not going to add an answer to that. It may be worth a point, but it's not going to be automatically marked. I want it to be a long answer, so I click on long answer, and it'll give the students a space here to submit their longer answer. Right, so that last thing I wanted to add or wanted to show you is another question. Let's say this is a text question, so you're going to input a text question here. Let's say this is a math question. Okay, and I want this to give me the ability to add math to it. So I can enter an equation, and automatically that pops up are different functions to add characters and numbers that I might need to properly display a math question. So I have subscripts, I have fractions here, less and greater than signs, irrational symbols, exponents, logarithmic functions. So all of that's here. It may not be everything you need, but it's certainly a great start. I know I've often needed to have exponents, variables, so that really helps, right? The same thing happens when you start to add your answers. So the correct answer would be, you write the correct answer, and that's what, so you've set the answer key then for that question. So great, great functionality there. Okay, let's say we're done. I only have these two sections. You can continue adding more questions and more sections as well. Let's make it look nice. So theme, different options. These are just the backgrounds, which only really appear if students are answering this on their computers or a tablet. So let's say you can pick whatever you want. Let's say it'll be a classroom background. You have other options here. You can even upload your own pictures if you want to get fancy, right? So if you're done, you want to see how it looks, click on preview, and this is how it'll look in a computer. So this is the first section, your knowledge section. Once students answer all the questions in that section, it will move on to the next. I can try to do that right now, just to show you. Let's say A, let's say false. Next, these are now my communication questions, right? I can submit this is what students would see. They would click on submit and their quiz would be done. I'm going to go back now. Actually, I should have showed you how it would look like on a mobile device. So this is what it would look like on their cell phones. Great. And what's great about this as well is that students that may need help in understanding a question, if they need the assistance to audibly hear this, they can click here on this immersive reader function, and they'll be able to listen to the question that is being asked. So remind them of that option because it can be helpful. Okay, so that's how it would look like. Now we're done creating a form. There are a couple of features I've left out. Branching questions are great, but they're more for surveys, I find. There are other options, but I think I've covered what most teachers might end up using. Okay, so now let's share this. Step 2. All right, so in step 2, we're going to share. So let's click share. And there are two ways, well, actually there's several ways to share. I think the two that might be the most popular are these. So click on share, and here you have your options. So anyone with the link can respond. Just means that if you post this publicly, anyone can respond. It'll all appear as anonymous. You won't know who submitted answers, and that's great to collect data of certain kinds. But if I want this to be a quiz for a classroom, then I only want people in my organization. So only people in your board would then need to log on to their own Office 365, and while they write the quiz, it'll recognize them by name. So you won't have to have students write their name to answer the quiz, and some forget to do that, as they would normally in traditional quizzes or tests. So only people in my organization can respond is what I want to leave it at. Now, I like to use this. Here is a link. Copy the link, This link is ready for you to paste. You're now ready to paste this anywhere you'd like. You can paste it on a social media platform. You can put it onto, if you're using a SharePoint site, or Teams works as well. If you are using a SharePoint site, you can embed it. That'd be really cool. It appears just as a quiz embedded into your SharePoint site. You can also email it to students, but I find probably the best way is a link in two ways, either a link or a QR code. Maybe you want this posted somewhere on a wall, but I think probably a link might be best. So once you've copied that, you can then paste it wherever you like, and you're done sharing. That's one way. Another way, I'm going to go out of Forms now. I'm going to go back to my Office 365 welcome screen, and I'm going to click on Teams. Now, if you do have a Teams platform, this is great. Otherwise, if you don't, you can forward this part of the video. Here's my Teams, and I'm going to select the unit I want. Say this is a Unit 2 quiz. I'm going to click on plus. Then I can search for it, but if I can find forms here it is right there. I'm going to click on form. Okay, so I can create a new form to add to my Google Team channel, or I can add an existing one. So here's that quiz I just created. I can click on demo quiz, and I can save. Right, what that now does is it embeds the quiz I made into our Teams itself. Awesome way of sharing that. Right, I'm going to remove that though. It's not really a quiz I have for my students. They might get a notification that I posted that, so I don't want them to see that. So I'm going to remove it. Yes, remove. Am I sure? Yes. Okay, so that's another way to share it. That is second thing. Now the last thing to do is to review what students have responded to your quiz, or how what the responses look like. So I'm going to go back to forms. Click on forms here. This is our demo quiz. Right, I'm going to click on a quiz that I've done in the past, actually recently, a few weeks ago, that students have responded to. So here's that quiz. Click on that. Right, here are all my 31 responses. Now I will blur out any private information here, but what I like about the initial response screen is that it's simply a summary. So there were 31 students that responded. It took them on average of 7 minutes and 8 seconds to complete. And these are their answers. So when I'm doing this in class, I find it's helpful to quickly see the summary, because I can then see what sort of questions students need help with and which ones they are okay with. So this first question, 71 of the students responded correctly. And here are the varied responses. So 22 got it correct, 8 didn't, 8 selected option 1, and 1 selected 3 as a correct answer. 80% of students got this question right, so I know that topic seems to be okay. I might have to spend some more time on these next two, so questions 3 and 4 weren't so successfully responded to, so I have 58 and 43% there. Now, if I wanted to see these, review these answers, there are a few ways to do this. You can play around with this yourself, but one way is I can create a summary link. So this summary, without any personal information, can be posted onto my learning platform, whatever you're using, and it'll appear just as this is. So students can see the same summary without any personal information shared between students. Another way is I can print it. You have an option here of deleting all your responses if you want to reuse this quiz for future years, or for future classes. I'm going to review answers. So this way I'll be able to see answers individually. Again, I'll blur out anything that is private here. So this student completed the quiz in 3 minutes and 34 seconds and then scored an 83%. Pretty good. I can send a comment to that student. Great, rich feedback right there. I can move on to the next student, and I see that this person scored an 83%. Next person scored 100%. Wonderful. I'm seeing these great numbers, 83%. I can go through each of these students and see how they scored. Right? That might take a little bit of time. I can also do it through each question itself. I'm going to go back. It might take a bit of time to go through all that. So I can export, if I click here, I can export it into an Excel file. It'd be a lot of information. It'll go through each question. It'll tally what the students' marks are automatically for you. You can keep track of that. It's a great way to also see your data in a more all at once in an Excel in a detailed form. Great. So those are the 3 things you'll need to know to create an Office quiz, an Office form quiz, to share with your students using either a link or through Teams, and then finally then to review their results. Hope this helps.